Welcome to a reality where the boundary between the present and a dystopian future has completely dissolved. We are not talking about computer-generated imagery or Hollywood movie sets, but about titans of steel, cities operated by the sheer force of human desperation, and engineering marvels that balance precariously on the edge of the abyss. Today, we embark on an intensive journey through the most insane railway routes ever conceived, documenting the ambitious and often terrifying attempts to conquer nature's most hostile terrains. From rusted tracks hanging over 1,000-meter drops to locomotives battling the fury of the open ocean, these are the places where every second is a gamble with destiny. Take a deep breath and check your seatbelt, because this journey is designed to challenge your perception of safety and possibility. If you are passionate about exploring the extreme and the unknown, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to join us on our future voyages through the world's most incredible wonders. Let us begin this odyssey into the heart of mechanical madness. The Beast. Imagine a metal monster weighing thousands of tons. A freight train that rumbles through the darkness of the Mexican landscape, carrying on its back a cargo of human hope and absolute terror. Known to the world as El Tren de la Muerte, or the Beast, this network of freight cars stretches over 2,000 kilometers, serving as the primary, albeit illegal, artery for migrants heading toward a different life. There are no passenger seats here, no safety belts, and certainly no protection from the elements. Thousands of men, women, and children cling to the rounded roofs and the narrow gaps between the shaking cars, their hands gripping rusted metal as the train lurches and jolts at speeds that defy their precarious balance. To ride the Beast is to enter a state of high-intensity survival. The sun beats down with a predatory heat during the day, while the nights bring a bone-chilling cold and the constant threat of violent storms. The physical exhaustion is secondary to the psychological trauma of knowing that one slip of a tired hand or a momentary lapse into sleep could send a body spiraling beneath the massive, bone-crushing steel wheels. Every year, the tracks claim the limbs and lives of hundreds who were not strong enough to stay attached to the vibrating metal. There is a haunting quality to the sight of this train moving through the jungle, a wave of humanity riding atop a machine that was never meant to hold them, driven by a desperation so deep that the risk of death feels like a reasonable price for the chance of a future. It is a journey where the rails are slick with the reality of the human condition, a brutal testament to the lengths a person will go when they have nothing left to lose but their life. Maeklong Railway Market. Witness a spectacle that defies every rule of modern urban planning and safety, where a full-sized locomotive squeezes through a narrow corridor of commerce with only centimeters to spare. In the heart of Thailand, the Maeklong Railway Market operates as a living, breathing paradox, a place where the daily routine of buying and selling seafood, vegetables, and fruits is interrupted several times a day by a thundering wall of steel. The tracks themselves are the main aisle of the market, covered entirely by colorful awnings and stalls that sit directly on the rails. When the warning siren wails, a calculated and rhythmic chaos ensues. Vendors move with the precision of a choreographed dance, pulling back their umbrellas and sliding their goods just far enough to clear the incoming train. The locomotive passes so closely that it brushes against the hanging baskets and the shoppers who stand pressed against the walls of the surrounding buildings, their faces inches away from the hot, oily machinery. There is no fence, no barrier, and no margin for error. The locals call it the Talat Ram Hub, or the umbrella pull-down market, and for them, this is not a tourist attraction, but a century-old way of life. The psychological tension of standing on the tracks as the ground begins to vibrate under the weight of the approaching engine is overwhelming for any outsider. As soon as the last carriage clears the area, the awnings are instantly unfurled and the goods are pushed back over the rails, as if the monster of iron had never been there at all. It is a stunning display of human adaptability and a reminder that in some corners of the world, the line between public space and moving machinery is non-existent, creating a scene that feels like an impossible glitch in the fabric of reality. Mumbai Suburban Railway. Enter the heart of a city that never sleeps and experience the suffocating, high-velocity chaos of the world's most overcrowded rail network. Every single day, the Mumbai Suburban Railway carries over 7 million passengers, a number that exceeds the entire population of many small countries, cramming them into carriages that were designed for a fraction of that load. During the peak hours, the platforms transform into a surging sea of humanity, where individual will is lost to the collective pressure of the crowd. To catch a train here is not a simple act of boarding. It is a violent struggle for survival. Passengers hang from open doorways by a single hand, their bodies dangling over the tracks as the train thunders through the urban landscape at high speed. Others sit precariously on the roofs, dodging high-voltage overhead wires or balance on the narrow metal couplings between the cars. The density is so extreme that the air inside becomes a thick, hot fog of breath and sweat, and the sheer physical force of the people pushing can literally lift a person off their feet. This system is the lifeline of Mumbai, the engine that keeps the Indian economy beating, but it is also a site of daily tragedy. The statistics are chilling, with an average of 10 lives lost every day to falls, collisions with trackside poles, or electrocutions. It is a social and mechanical pressure cooker where the desperation to reach work or home overrides the basic instinct for self-preservation. Watching the trains depart covered in human clusters that sway with every turn, you realize that this is not just transportation. It is a relentless, exhausting test of the human spirit against a machine that cannot possibly hold everyone it must carry. Pilatus Railway. Scaling the jagged, vertical cliffs of the Swiss Alps near Lucerne, the Pilatus Railway stands as a monument to the era when engineers dared to attempt the impossible. This is the world's steepest rack railway, a mechanical beast that climbs Mount Pilatus at an incline so sharp it feels more like an elevator than a train. With a maximum gradient of 48%, the red carriages crawl straight up the mountain's face, hanging over a dizzying void of alpine valleys and frozen rock. When you look through the panoramic windows, the world below falls away with terrifying speed, leaving you suspended between the clouds and the jagged granite spires. The genius behind this 19th century marvel is the unique locker rack system, featuring two horizontally rotating cogwheels that grip the center rail with a tenacity that prevents the train from sliding backward. Without this specialized gear, no locomotive could ever hope to conquer such a slope. The journey takes you through dark, narrow tunnels blasted through solid rock and across exposed ridges where the wind howls with a savage intensity. In the winter, the mountain becomes a hostile fortress of ice and snow, yet the railway remains a testament to the human desire to reach the summit at any cost. The sheer verticality of the route triggers a primal acrophobia. As the train tilts upward, your back is pressed into the seat, and your eyes are fixed on the sky, praying that the century-old gears continue to hold. It is an engineering masterpiece that turns a suicidal climb into a tourist legend, offering a perspective on the Alps that was once reserved only for the birds and the most daring of mountaineers. Gotake Viaduct, deep in the mist-shrouded mountains of northern Myanmar, a fragile-looking web of steel stretches across a yawning green abyss, carrying heavy trains over a gorge that seems to have no bottom. The Gotake Viaduct, completed in 1901, was once the largest railway trestle in the world and remains a terrifying relic of colonial-era engineering. The bridge stands over 100 meters above the valley floor, supported by a series of slender steel towers that groan and vibrate under the weight of the passing carriages. As the train enters the viaduct, it slows to a crawl, a pace designed to prevent the vibrations of the locomotive from shaking the aging structure to pieces. This slow movement only intensifies the psychological terror for those on board. You can look directly through the gaps in the floor or out the open windows to see the jungle floor hundreds of feet below, with nothing but a few rusted bolts holding you in the air. The viaduct is surrounded by steep, impenetrable cliffs and dense tropical forests, making any thoughts of rescue or escape impossible if the steel were to fail. The sound of the metal creaking and the wind whistling through the trestles creates a symphony of anxiety that lasts for the several minutes it takes to cross. It is a journey through time and space, a bridge that connects remote highland villages but feels like it belongs to a world that has been forgotten by the modern age. Crossing the Gotake is an act of blind faith in a century of history, a breathtaking and nerve-wracking experience where the beauty of the Shan Hills is constantly overshadowed by the lethal height of the steel path beneath your feet. Stuzban. Step into a world where the laws of conventional geometry are replaced by a vertical reality that challenges every instinct of balance. In the rugged heart of the Swiss Alps, the Stuzban funicular stands as a chillingly modern marvel, a machine that redefines the meaning of steepness with a gradient of 110%. This is not a train you simply board. It is a futuristic capsule that scales a near-vertical mountain face, like a high-speed elevator to the heavens. The most striking feature of this engineering paradox is its cylindrical, rotating cabins, which automatically tilt as the incline changes, ensuring that passengers remain level even as the world outside tilts into a dizzying 47-degree angle. From a distance, the train looks like a string of giant pearls, rolling up a sheer cliff of grass and rock. The psychological impact of looking out the window is profound. As the cabins glide through dark tunnels and overexposed ridges, you are acutely aware that you are being pulled up a wall of stone by a few high-tension steel cables. In the winter, the journey becomes even more surreal as the train pierces through heavy blizzards and blinding whiteouts, ascending to a mountain village that is often cut off from the rest of the world. It is a triumph of technical ingenuity, a sleek and silent monster of metal that turns a terrifying ascent into a seamless, gravity-defying dance. To ride the Stuzban is to surrender to the machine, trusting in its complex gyroscopic systems to keep you upright while the majestic, frozen landscape of Schweiz threatens to pull you back into the abyss. La Polverilla Viaduct. At an altitude of over 4,200 meters above sea level, the air becomes so thin that every breath feels like a struggle, and the horizon seems to stretch into the infinite void of the Andean sky. This is the culmination of Argentina's famous Train to the Clouds route, where the massive steel skeleton of the La Polverilla Viaduct spans a deep desert canyon with a haunting, skeletal grace. The structure rises 70 meters from the canyon floor, a curved web of rusted iron that groans and vibrates as the heavy train slowly crawls across its exposed deck. There are no guardrails here to obscure the view, and as the locomotive moves into the center of the span, you feel as though you are literally floating in the clouds, disconnected from the earth and its safety. The wind at this altitude is savage, a cold and relentless force that shakes the carriages and reminds you that you are at the mercy of the elements in one of the harshest environments on the continent. The viaduct was built in the 1930s, a time when such a project was considered a madness born of colonial ambition, and it remains a testament to the endurance of the men who labored in the oxygen-depleted air to forge this path. Looking down from the windows, the dry, rocky bed of the canyon looks like a moonscape, a world where life is a luxury and the only sound is the metal-on-metal screech of the train fighting against the mountain. It is a journey that induces a deep, spiritual vertigo, a place where the scale of the landscape is so vast that human existence feels like a mere whisper against the silence of the Andes. Mauritania iron ore train. Emerging from the scorching, endless dunes of the Sahara Desert, a rusted iron serpent stretches for over 2.5 kilometers, pulling 200 freight cars across a landscape of absolute desolation. This is the Mauritania iron ore train, a titan of the desert, and one of the longest, heaviest, and most punishing railway journeys on the planet. It is a machine that carries thousands of tons of corrosive ore from the mines of Zouérate to the Atlantic coast, but its most shocking cargo is the human beings who ride on top. For the locals, there is no luxury of a passenger cabin. Instead, they climb onto the open piles of black iron dust, enduring a 20-hour odyssey through a furnace of heat during the day and a freezing void at night. The environment is an active predator. The abrasive Saharan winds whip the iron dust into a suffocating fog that clogs the lungs and blinds the eyes, turning every traveler into a soot-covered ghost. There is no protection, no water supply, and no shade as the train rumbles across 700 kilometers of empty sand, where the nearest civilization is often hundreds of miles away. To fall from the train is a death sentence. As the monster of iron will not stop for a single soul, leaving the fallen to be consumed by the sun and the silence of the Sahara. It is a journey of brutal survival, a testament to the extreme lengths humanity will go to move resources across a world that rejects life, where the only sound is the deafening roar of the locomotive and the rattling of metal against the infinite desert floor. Donner Pass. Imagine a mountain pass so hostile that it has become a legendary graveyard for pioneers, a place where the winter storms can dump 20 meters of snow in a single season, burying everything in a frozen, white tomb. In California's Sierra Nevada, the railway through Donner Pass is not just a route, it is a battleground where human technology must wage a constant, violent war against the fury of the earth. When the blizzards strike, the tracks vanish beneath massive drifts, and the only solution is to send the rotary snowplow trains, monstrous machines equipped with 3-meter-wide spinning blades that cut through walls of ice like a mechanical jaw. In the absolute whiteout of an alpine storm, the visibility drops to zero, and the train becomes a blind, roaring weapon of steel pushing through a landscape of hidden avalanches and steep cliffs. To be on board during such an operation is to feel the crushing weight of the snow pressing against the metal skin of the carriages, a reminder that one mechanical failure could leave the entire convoy trapped in a sub-zero nightmare from which there is no escape. The history of this pass is stained with the tragedy of the Donner Party, and that same cold, lethal energy still haunts the tunnels and bridges that cling to the granite slopes. It is a place of megalophobic scale, where the towering mountains and the sheer volume of the ice remind us that even our most powerful machines are fragile when faced with the full, unbridled force of an Arctic winter in the heart of the Sierras. Pas-Sac-Jolisid Dam, accelerating across a narrow ribbon of steel that is completely engulfed by a vast, murky expanse of water. The floating train of Thailand creates a scene that feels like an impossible dream extracted from a fantasy movie. During the peak of the monsoon season, the water levels of the Pas Sac Jolacid Reservoir rise so high that they swallow the tracks and the surrounding embankment, leaving only the locomotive and its carriages to glide across the surface of the lake. Standing on the train as it moves, you look out the window to see a horizon of water stretching in every direction, with no land in sight and no visual evidence of the ground beneath you. The psychological sensation is one of profound disorientation. Your brain tells you that a multi-ton machine of iron should not be floating, yet you feel the rhythmic vibrations of the rails hidden beneath the waves. The danger is subtle but deep. A single slip from the submerged tracks would send the entire train rolling into the dark, silt-filled depths, turning the carriages into inescapable underwater coffins for the hundreds of tourists on board. The trees that once stood on dry land now emerge from the water like skeletal fingers, and fishing boats drift past the windows as if you were part of their aquatic world. It is a surreal urban legend made real, a place where the boundary between the terrestrial and the aquatic is erased by the power of the flood, offering a journey that is as beautiful as it is unnervingly precarious. Hanoi Train Street. In the vibrant, frantic heart of Vietnam's capital, there exists a narrow residential alleyway where the rhythm of daily life is punctuated by the thunderous arrival of a wall of moving steel. Known as Hanoi Train Street, this is a place where homes, cafes, and workshops are built so close to the tracks that there are only centimeters of space between the passing train and the people's front doors. Several times a day, a warning whistle echoes through the canyon of buildings, and a frantic, practiced routine begins. Residents pull back their plastic chairs, scoop up their laundry, and press their bodies flat against the walls as the locomotive squeezes through the gap. The proximity is so extreme that you can feel the heat of the engine on your skin and the wind of its passing ruffling your hair, a sensory overload that blurs the line between public space and high-speed machinery. One wrong step or a poorly placed sign can result in a catastrophic impact. Yet for the community here, this is the environment they have inhabited for over a century. The contrast between the domestic intimacy of the street, where children play and old men play chess, and the brutal, indifferent power of the interstate train is a spectacle of urban madness. It is a place where the concept of a safety buffer is an alien luxury, and survival is a matter of timing and constant vigilance. Watching the massive blue carriages pass just inches from a cup of coffee, you realize that in this corner of the world, the machine has been absorbed into the very fabric of human existence, creating a living theater of danger and adaptability. Death Railway, carving a path of blood and sorrow through the suffocating jungles and jagged cliffs of western Thailand. The Burma Railway stands as a macabre monument to the horrors of war and the resilience of the human spirit. Known as the Death Railway, this 400-kilometer route was built by the forced labor of over 100,000 prisoners of war and civilians who were pushed to the edge of exhaustion under the brutal rule of the Japanese Empire. The construction conditions were an apocalyptic nightmare of disease, starvation, and violence, where every sleeper laid on the track is said to represent a life lost to the jungle. Today, the most terrifying section remains the Whampoa Viaduct, where the train reeled along narrow wooden trestles that are pinned directly to the side of a sheer cliff overlooking the Kwai Noi River. The bridge is made of aging timber that creaks and sways under the weight of modern tourist trains. And as you look down into the swirling brown water dozens of meters below, you realize that there is nothing but a century-old scaffolding keeping you from the void. The atmosphere is deeply haunting as the train passes through sections like Hellfire Pass, where the rock was carved by hand in the darkness of night. It is a journey through a landscape that has never truly recovered from its history, a place where the beauty of the tropical forest is forever shadowed by the memory of the thousands who died to build this path through the impossible. Pamban Bridge. Rising precariously from the violent, turquoise waters of the Indian Ocean, the Pamban Bridge is a rusted and salt-stained thread of iron that connects mainland India to the sacred island of Rameswaram. Completed in 1914, this 2-kilometer-long sea crossing is one of the most exposed and dangerous railway segments in the world, sitting just meters above the crashing waves and the fury of coastal cyclones. Driving over the bridge, the passenger is surrounded by nothing but the vast, open sea on both sides, with the wind howling through the gaps in the iron framework and shaking the entire train with a terrifying intensity. The salt air is an invisible enemy, constantly corroding the structure and threatening the integrity of the rails that carry thousands of pilgrims every day. The most unique and nerve-wracking feature of the bridge is its central bascule section, a massive double leaf gate that can lift open to allow ships to pass, a mechanical feat that seems out of place in the middle of the ocean. During high tides or stormy weather, the waves can actually spray over the tracks, drenching the carriages and making it appear as though the train is navigating through a maritime storm rather than traveling on a bridge. It is a place of profound marine acrophobia, where the immense scale of the ocean and the fragility of the 100-year-old iron create a sense of total vulnerability. To cross the Pamban is to trust your life to a skeleton of steel that has survived a century of salt and storms. A journey where the roar of the sea is a constant reminder of the ocean's power to reclaim what man has built. Dhaka commuter trains. In the delta of Bangladesh, the railway system has been transformed into a surging, living organism where the tracks themselves disappear beneath an overwhelming sea of humanity. During the rush hours in Dhaka, the commuter trains are packed so far beyond their capacity that the interior of the carriages is a secondary consideration. Thousands of people climb onto the roofs, hang from the door frames and cling to the metal pipes of the locomotive just to find a square inch of space. This is a social and mechanical chaos of apocalyptic proportions, where the train becomes a mountain of moving bodies thundering through the city at full speed. Those on the roof must balance on the curved metal while dodging low-hanging branches and overhead structures. A terrifying act of coordination that results in frequent and tragic accidents. The density is so high that at the stations, the crowd on the platform merges with the crowd on the train in a violent, pushing surge where a single slip can lead to a person being crushed beneath the wheels. There are no safety regulations here that can withstand the pressure of such a population, and the railway operates in a state of permanent emergency. Watching these trains move, covered in hundreds of people packed shoulder to shoulder on every available exterior surface, you see the raw reality of a world where the need for movement has stripped away every layer of comfort and safety. It is a journey defined by collective desperation and an incredible, albeit terrifying, display of human balance against the vibration of a machine that is perpetually on the verge of being overwhelmed. Bernina Express. Climbing through the jagged, ice-covered peaks of the Swiss Alps. The Bernina Express is a journey that feels as though it was designed by a mad architect who refused to acknowledge the impossibility of the terrain. This is the highest railway crossing in Europe, reaching over 2,200 meters at the Ospizio Bernina, where the train glides past massive glaciers and frozen lakes that remain white for most of the year. The route is a masterclass in technical paradox, featuring 55 tunnels and 196 bridges that snake through the mountains without the use of a rack and pinion system, relying purely on the friction of the wheels and the power of the engine. The most surreal moment of the journey occurs at the Brusio Spiral Viaduct, an elegant stone bridge that loops around in a 360-degree circle to allow the train to descend a steep slope in a very short distance. From the panoramic windows, you can see the front of your own train passing beneath you as you loop through the air, a sight that induces a unique sense of spatial disorientation. The danger here is the environment itself. The route is prone to devastating blizzards and avalanches that can bury the tracks in seconds, and the descent into the Italian valleys involves curves so sharp the metal screeches in protest. It is a landscape of majestic, cold beauty, where the train is a tiny, red speck against the crushing scale of the Alps, offering a journey that feels more like a flight through a world of ice and stone than a simple rail trip. Durango and Silverton. Deep in the rugged, sun-scorched canyons of Colorado, a 19th century steam locomotive still rumbles along a path that was carved out of the sheer granite cliffs during the height of the American silver mining boom. The Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad is a living relic that clings to narrow ledges hundreds of feet above the churning white water of the Animas River, following a route that is as dangerous as it is historic. In many sections, the tracks are pinned directly to the vertical rock face with no barriers or guardrails, leaving the train to teeter on the very edge of an abyss where a single rock fall or a track failure would result in a catastrophic plunge into the gorge. Thick, black coal smoke pours from the chimney, filling the mountain air with a gritty residue that reminds travelers of the brutal industrial era that forged this line. The journey takes you through isolated wilderness, where the mountains rise above 4,000 meters, and the only signs of human presence are abandoned mining camps and the narrow strip of steel beneath the wheels. The psychological tension is constant. As the train winds around curves so sharp the carriages seem to hang over the water, you feel the raw, vibrating power of the ancient machine as it fights against the gravity of the San Juan Mountains. It is a journey into the wild, lawless past of the American West, a place where the engineering is as blunt and powerful as the landscape it conquered, and where the line between a scenic tour and a brush with death is as thin as the rusted rails. Cusco to Machu Picchu. Traversing the high-altitude heart of the Peruvian Andes, the railway from Cusco to Machu Picchu is a twisting, hypnotic journey through a landscape of sacred peaks and deadly vertical drops. The route follows the path of the Urubamba River, snaking along the base of massive granite walls and over fragile bridges that look out onto a canyon that seems to swallow the light. As the train moves deeper into the mountains, it passes through remote villages and ancient salt ponds that have been harvested by hand for over 1,000 years, shimmering in the thin mountain air like liquid silver. The danger here is geological. The Andes are a young and unstable range, and the railway is under constant threat from massive landslides and flash floods that can wash away entire sections of the track without warning. In some places, the train must perform a series of zigzags, reversing up steep inclines to gain elevation in a way that feels unnatural and nerve-wracking for the passengers. The proximity of the cliffs is so great that from the observation cars, you can reach out and touch the moss-covered stone, while the other side of the train looks directly into a churning river hundreds of feet below. It is a journey through a world that remains governed by the spirits of the mountains, where the modern train is a fragile intruder in a landscape of megalithic stone and deep, green mysteries. To travel this route is to experience the profound isolation of the high Andes, where the path to the lost city of the Incas is a delicate thread held together by the grit of the engineers and the patience of the earth. Qinghai Tibet Railway. Rising like a dragon of steel toward the frozen roof of the world, the Qinghai Tibet Railway is the highest railway on Earth, a triumph of human grit over an environment that is fundamentally hostile to biological life. This line reaches altitudes of over 5,000 meters as it crosses the Tibetan Plateau, where the oxygen levels are 40% lower than at sea level, and the air is so thin it can cause fatal edema in the unprepared. To build this route, engineers had to solve the impossible problem of permafrost. The ground here is permanently frozen, but the heat of a moving train or the summer sun can melt the ice, causing the tracks to sink into a muddy abyss. Their solution was a massive network of ammonia-filled cooling pipes driven into the earth to keep the ground artificially frozen year-round. Traveling this route is a lesson in extreme isolation. For hundreds of miles, there is nothing but snow-covered valleys, distant glaciers, and the occasional herd of wild yaks or Tibetan antelopes. The train itself is a pressurized life support system, with an oxygen supply for every passenger and windows, designed to filter out the lethal ultraviolet radiation of the high-altitude sun. It is a journey through a silent, white wilderness that feels like the surface of another planet, a place where the scale of the Earth is so vast that the train seems like a tiny needle stitching together the fragments of an ancient, frozen world. Copper Canyon. The moment the Ferrocarril Chihuahua al Pacifico begins its descent into the Sierra Madre of northern Mexico, the world transforms into a labyrinth of vertical stone and deep, shadowed abysses that are larger and deeper than the Grand Canyon. Known as the Chepe, this railway is a masterpiece of mountain engineering, utilizing 86 tunnels and nearly 40 bridges to navigate a system of 6 massive canyons that define the rugged interior of the country. For hours, the train twists and turns with such intensity that you can see the locomotive wrapping around the edge of a cliff while the rear carriages are still emerging from a tunnel behind you. The height is terrifying. The bridges span gaps that are hundreds of meters deep, and the tracks often cling to ledges that look too narrow to support the weight of the massive carriages. The landscape is a kaleidoscope of high-altitude pine forests and subtropical valley floors, but the constant factor is the sheer, crushing scale of the rock walls that enclose the train. It is an environment of extreme geological megalophobia, where you are trapped inside a machine that is perpetually climbing and diving through the guts of the earth. By the end of the journey, you no longer feel as though you are traveling across Mexico. You feel as though you have been initiated into a hidden, vertical world where the only way out is through the cold, dark tunnels of the Sierra Madre. Dawlish Sea Wall. Standing in direct defiance of the relentless power of the Atlantic Ocean, the Dawlish Railway Line in England is perhaps the most visually dramatic example of the war between human infrastructure and the sea. Built in the 1840s by the legendary engineer Isambard Kingdom Brunel, the tracks run along a narrow stone shelf between the red sandstone cliffs and the open water, separated from the waves by nothing but a low sea wall. During the fierce storms that batter the Devon coast, the ocean becomes a physical predator. Massive, gray walls of water explode over the wall and slam directly into the passing trains, drenching the carriages and making it impossible for the passengers to see anything through the windows but a swirling, salty darkness. In 2014, the sea finally won a battle as a catastrophic storm breached the wall and washed away the ground beneath the tracks, leaving the rails hanging in mid-air like a broken bridge. To To ride this train during a gale is an exercise in marine claustrophobia. You are trapped in a metal tube as the ocean tries to pull you into its depths, with the sound of the surf deafening even the roar of the engine. It is a place where the earth is being eaten away piece by piece, and the railway is a fragile line of communication that persists only through constant, expensive maintenance and a stubborn refusal to yield to the waves. Lucen Cutoff. Cutting a straight, inflexible line through the center of the Great Salt Lake in Utah, the Lucen Cutoff is one of the most surreal and alien railway environments in the United States. Built to save miles of travel around the lake's edge, this rock-filled causeway stretches for nearly 40 kilometers across open water, creating a landscape that feels like a glitch in reality. Because the causeway restricts the flow of water, the two sides of the lake have developed different ecosystems and colors. One side is a deep, vibrant blue, while the other is a thick, alien red caused by salt-loving bacteria. Traveling along this narrow strip of land, you look out the window to see endless white salt flats and red water reflecting the sky like a giant, distorted mirror, with no sign of human civilization in any direction. The environment is intensely hostile. The corrosive salt air eats through metal at an accelerated rate, and the extreme desert temperatures can cause the rails to warp and buckle. During the winter, the winds across the open lake can reach hurricane force, threatening to push the heavy freight trains off their narrow path and into the brine. It is a place of absolute horizontal megalophobia, where the lack of vertical landmarks and the vastness of the water create a sense of being lost in a two-dimensional world. A journey through a dead sea, where the only sound is the rhythmic heartbeat of the train. Lebong Tandai. Hidden deep within the impenetrable, humid jungles of Sumatra, Indonesia, the Lebong Tandai Railway is a decaying relic of colonial gold mining that has been reclaimed by the wilderness and the desperation of the local people. This narrow-gauge track is no longer served by modern locomotives. Instead, the villagers use Molex, small, homemade rail carts assembled from motorcycle engines, wooden frames, and improvised metal wheels. To ride a Molek is to experience a primitive and terrifying form of transportation, as the cart bounces violently across rusted, unstable tracks and rotting wooden bridges that hang above deep, jungle-choked ravines. The isolation is absolute. The tracks disappear into dark, hand-carved tunnels where no light reaches, and the air is thick with the smell of damp earth and decay. There are no safety barriers, no brakes, and no communication systems. If a rail breaks or a bridge collapses beneath you, you simply vanish into the green oblivion of the Sumatran forest. The danger is not a possibility, but a constant companion, as the jungle actively tries to consume the railway from all sides with encroaching vines and frequent mudslides. It is a Mad Max-style survivalist route, where the machine is held together by wire and grit, and every journey is a gamble against the rot of the materials and the indifference of the wild. Maumee and Western. In the flat, agricultural heartland of Indiana and Ohio, there exists a railway that has become an internet legend for its extreme state of decay and its defiance of every modern safety standard. The Maumee and Western Railroad is the undisputed king of bad maintenance, where the heavy steel rails have warped over time into a series of impossible, rolling waves that look more like a roller coaster than a freight line. To watch a 1,000-ton train attempt to navigate these tracks is a slow-motion exercise in anxiety. The locomotive sways and tilts so violently that it appears ready to tip over at any second, crawling along at a pace slower than a human walk. The reason for this decay is the soft, swampy ground and decades of corporate neglect, which have turned the railway into a skeletal ruin that still, somehow, carries dangerous chemical cargo through forgotten industrial towns. The psychological tension for the engineers is immense, as every creak of the metal and every lurch of the wheels could be the moment the track finally gives up and sends the entire convoy into the mud. There is a haunting beauty to this industrial rot, a place where the machine is losing its battle against the earth and the passage of time, serving as a reminder that without the constant effort of man, our most powerful infrastructures are destined to return to the chaos of the natural world. Georgetown Loop. High in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado, the Georgetown Loop Railroad is a masterpiece of 19th century engineering that was built to conquer a vertical landscape that engineers of the time deemed impassable. To gain the necessary elevation to reach the silver mines of Silver Plume, the railway was designed as a series of tight curves and looping tracks that actually cross over themselves, anchored by the spectacular Devil's Gate High Bridge. This steel trestle rises 30 meters above the canyon floor, a narrow and exposed crossing where the vintage steam engine must crawl across a void surrounded by jagged cliffs and dense pine forests. From the open-air carriages, the view into the abyss is direct and terrifying, with nothing but a thin wooden railing separating the passengers from a fatal drop into the Animas River. The air is cold and thin, and the sound of the steam whistle echoes through the canyon like a ghost from another century, a reminder of the gold and silver rushes that once drove men to build these impossible paths. The danger is a constant undercurrent, as the steep grades and sharp turns require absolute mechanical precision to prevent the train from running away down the mountain. It is a journey into the vertical history of the American West, a place where the thrill of the heights is matched by the elegance of a machine that was built to bend the mountains to its will. Tazara Railway. Stretching for nearly 2,000 kilometers through the impenetrable heart of East Africa, the Tazara Railway is an epic journey of mechanical endurance and absolute isolation. Connecting the port of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania to the copper belt of Zambia, this line cuts through some of the most remote and wild landscapes on the planet, far from any modern roads or major cities. The journey can last over 50 hours, during which the aging train moves through tropical rainforests, across flooded savannas, and over narrow steel bridges that tremble above deep, crocodile-infested rivers. What makes this route truly extreme is the proximity to the wild. It is not uncommon to see elephants walking beside the tracks, giraffes standing on the plains, or baboons emerging from the forest at remote stations where the arrival of the train is the only event of the week. The danger here is the isolation itself. If the locomotive breaks down in the middle of the Selous Game Reserve, you are essentially trapped in a metal cage surrounded by predators in a region where help is days away. The air is thick with heat and the smell of the African bush, and the constant swaying of the carriages becomes a rhythmic, hypnotic experience that blurs the days and nights. It is a railway that still belongs to the landscape, a place where nature dictates the pace of travel and where the disappearance of the train into the endless horizon feels like a journey back to an era when the earth was still an unconquered wilderness. We have reached the end of our journey across the world's most dangerous and impossible railways, but the echoes of the screeching metal and the roar of the wind will surely remain. From the frozen plateaus of Tibet to the sun-scorched dunes of the Sahara, we have witnessed how humanity has dared to lay steel where it should never have existed, proving that the need for connection is often stronger than the fear of the abyss. These tracks are more than just transportation. They are scars on the landscape that tell stories of courage, desperation, and incredible engineering. Thank you for riding with us through the heart of mechanical madness. If you enjoyed this hour-long expedition, please give this video a thumbs up and share your favorite extreme railway in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more journeys into the most breathtaking and perilous corners of our planet. Until our next departure, stay curious, stay adventurous, and keep looking toward the horizon. Goodbye for now.